they show this guy, Chinese doctor, dressed in white with these hats that they wear, especially old doctors,
Yes.
and he was sticking needles into someone's back, and you had the acupuncture charts on the wall, and I was watching this and I went crazy. I was like, I want to do this.
And you're 5 years old. I'm Michael Max, and this is Geological. When a prospective patient asks how acupuncture works, what they are really asking is, will acupuncture work for me? Which is an important question, the vital question, really. But for some reason, I suspect people are embarrassed to ask this question, or they don't know how to phrase it without sounding impolite. What they really want to know is, am I wasting my time and my money? Is acupuncture reliable? And for that matter, are you reliable? They want to know if you're trustworthy, and they want to figure out how they're going to explain their decision to their family and friends. Or perhaps they're trying to square Chinese medicine with some religious beliefs, or fishing to see if there's enough of something that smells like science for it to be acceptable in the 21st century. Very few patients really care about how a medical intervention works. They want reassurance that it does. And they're hoping that coming for acupuncture is not an induction into some weird way of life. Are you going to ask them to do yoga, change their diet, or rearrange the furniture of their belief system? What people really want to know is, are you going to respect them? Will you be able to help within the parameters of what they deem as reasonable? Can you bring value for their money and time? And mostly they will have a conversation with you about the money, but while the issue of time is rarely spoken, trust me, it's there. This is why people scour the internet, reading the reviews of people they don't know or have any kind of relationship with. This is why they will call you and ask how acupuncture works. They actually don't care how it works, but they want to see if they can begin to engage with you and see if that might lead to some kind of a connection. It's not a bad way for a patient to get a taste of what it might be like to work with you. Again, the issue here is trust, not method or mechanics. So, can you answer something about how acupuncture works, but be sure to answer the unasked questions of, will this help me? How will I know this is working? And are you a shyster who's trying to pick my pocket? One last thing. If you do get into a discussion about how acupuncture works, don't give them a Chinese medicine 101 class. Talk to them in a language they can understand based on the experience that they already have. Or skip that entirely and go straight to the real questions. You'll be surprised at how well people respond to having their true concerns addressed. These conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. Blue Poppy, your new one-stop shop, has speedy shipping options on everything that you need for your clinic. It's Women's Health Month at Mayway Herbs. Check out their new website for learning resources on helping women with herbal medicine. Are you a creature of habit? How about making a change that helps your patients and the planet with AccuFast needles? And later in the show, raising your fees doesn't have to be a difficult process. Jane has helpful suggestions on making it easy and effective. And finally, have you considered that having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things that you can do? Julie Bear Don't Walk has, and she can help you do something about it too. Do be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Geological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Picture this. Your clinic is buzzing with patients, and then you realize that you're down to your last box of needles. No need for panic, because Blue Poppy, your one-stop shop for all your acupuncture needs, they ship orders received before 3 p.m. on the same day. With a quick visit to Blue Poppy's website, you can order premium needles, herbal formulas, and that special Dr. Bob's oil that your patients love. Blue Poppy understands practitioners can't keep patients waiting. That's why they strive to get you what you need when you need it. From high-quality Chinese herbs and formulations to acupuncture supplies and clinical essentials, Blue Poppy has served practitioners for nearly 40 years with products that meet the highest of standards. Discover everything Blue Poppy has to offer by visiting www.bluepoppy.com, and don't forget to subscribe to their mailing list for exclusive offers and more.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lyle, president of Mayway Herbs. May is Women's Health Month, and as a women-owned and women-run business, we especially love how Chinese medicine can support wellness through every stage of a woman's life. So in this month's newsletter and podcast, we're covering topics like PMS, pregnancy, menopause, and osteoporosis. We'll share expert insights and effective treatment strategies you can put to good use in your clinic. Our Plumflower brand line includes herbal tea pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs, all of which you can find on Mayway.com, and where you can also find articles, videos, and other resources to support your practice. Since 1969, Mayway has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. In these challenging times, please know that we remain committed to keeping our products accessible and affordable so you can take care of yourself and your patients. As always, thank you for supporting Real Chinese Medicine.
Daily habits and routines feel comforting, familiar, easy, automatic. That's the power of repetition. You've worked out the kinks and can do it with your eyes closed. But what if you shook things up? What if you ditched the old routine and tried something new? Hi, I'm John Sten. I've practiced acupuncture for over 30 years, and together with my wife Kelly, we created the world's first eco-friendly acupuncture needle. The AccuFast earth-friendly needle system cuts your packaging waste by 60 to 90%, depending upon your needle type, speeds up your needling, gives you more control, and best of all, while you're healing patients, we plant a tree for every 2 boxes your clinic uses. Thousands of acupuncturists have already made the switch. In just the last year, they've helped plant over 16,000 trees. Since we started, that number has grown to over 50,000. So break the routine. Be the change. Visit AccuFastNeedles.com. Your patients and the planet will thank you.
Chinese medicine has found its way throughout the world, and while you might be familiar with how it has meandered its way into North America or Europe, you might not be familiar with how it has wound its way into the southern hemisphere of the Americas. In this conversation with Rodrigo Aranda, we discuss his draw to study and live in China, how Chinese medicine fits into the medical system of Chile, and the profound influence of Dr. Wang Jui on his learning and on his work. Join us now in this conversation. Rodrigo Aranda, welcome to Geological.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
You are the first South American podcast guest that I've had.
Yeah, it's an honor for me. I'm really happy to be here. I've been following Geological for a while, and I never actually thought that I would be one of the people you were interviewing, so I'm really happy.
Well, that's okay. I never thought I'd run a podcast, so life is always tremendously surprising. It's wonderful that we have this technology, that we can be here together in these different parts of the world and talk a bit about this amazing medicine that came out of East Asia, and it truly has traveled all over the globe. You can find it just about anywhere. And when I used to live in China, people would often ask me about, Chinese medicine. It's like, how's that accepted in the United States? I found it to be a very annoying question after a while, but it's actually a question that I have. I'm really curious to know about Chinese medicine in South America. I know something of, say, the natural history of it here in the United States, but I'm not sure how it got to South America. So I'd like to hear something about that. How did Chinese medicine find its way down to your corner of the world? And also, by extension, how did you find your way to this medicine?
Okay. All I can say about I think it's almost the same way it got to the rest of the world outside China, of course. I mean, Chinese immigrants that came to this part of the world. I mean, in Brazil, you have a huge Chinese and Japanese community in São Paulo. So it's been very popular in São Paulo and other parts of Brazil since many decades. In Chile, it came like through mostly, I would say that Chinese who stuck in Chile probably around the second half of the 19th century after the what we call the Pacific War. Yeah, that has nothing to do with the World War II. It's something that happened here between Chile, Peru, and Bolivia. And I would say that was like first contact between like Chinese culture and Chile. There was a huge political thing that I'm not really going to go there because actually there's still a lot of heat
Mm.
regarding that. But after this war, a lot of Chinese got stuck in Chile basically, or migrated, you could say. And with them, they brought everything, their culture, their beliefs, and things like that, especially in the north of Chile. That's what I would say. And it's also been known that we have a really huge port it's called Valparaiso. It's in the central coast of Chile. And before they opened the Panama Canal, that port used to be like the main port in the continent. So a lot of immigrants came also that way. And it's been known that there have been, like, it's not recorded, but it's been known that there's been, in Valparaiso, there's been Chinese medicine practitioners since mid 20th century at least. But it started to get like more popular in the 70s probably. There was this colleague of mine. He passed. I mean, I never got to meet him. His name was Marco Vergara, and he was a medical doctor, just like me, a surgeon. And he went to live in China, and he studied in Dongzhimen Hospital for over 2 years in 1972.
Wow, that's early. That's early. I know Dongzhimen Hospital. I've been there.
Yeah, me too. It's still there.
Yeah. It's attached to the Beijing Zhongyao Dashi. It's part of
Yeah.
the Beijing University there. It's the teaching hospital. Long history.
Yeah, and this doctor spent around maybe about 2 years and then came back and he started to practice acupuncture until his last days. And actually, until now, it's known that he's the only one who has performed like a major surgical procedure using only acupuncture as anesthesia. Yeah, he did that back in the 70s.
I've heard about that. Acupuncture is anesthetic, but it's nothing I ever saw in China.
Yeah, me
Not that
neither.
I sought it out. And it's nothing I was really interested in, but of course, it's one of those things that you hear about. So he actually did that.
Yeah, they did that back in the 70s, and I think that China used to be a lot more precarious than what you probably lived and I lived when I was there. And I think that back at the time that they had to use acupuncture, maybe probably for doing surgical procedures. And I think, I mean, the advance of Western medicine, especially in the whole anesthesiology field, it's gotten a lot better since then, and that's why probably they don't use it anymore. But I've heard that it was really frequent. I mean, back in those days. So, I mean, this doctor was the first one, like first official, you could say, acupuncturist in Chile or Chinese medicine practitioner. And then after him, he started more and more people who got interested. Some others went to China also back in the late 70s. And some started going to Brazil or to Buenos Aires, that they had also like a more established Chinese community. Which is a funny thing because even if we have contact with Chinese people since I told you second half of the 19th century, there's never been like a really like established Chinatown in Santiago or in Valparaiso or in other places. They're more scattered. Like if you go to Sao Paulo, you can go to Chinatown. In Buenos Aires, you can go to Chinatown. But here in Chile, it's more, and it still is. I mean, we have a lot of Chinese immigrants nowadays, but they're still very much scattered. I mean, they have their shopping center, we have a lot of restaurants, we have a lot of Chinese medicine practitioners from the mainland, from Taiwan also. But it's like they don't have this structured community like you have in the US, for instance, in other parts of the world.
That's curious, especially given big seaport that you used to have there that would bring
Yep.
so many people in. It's so curious to me the way that peoples and cultures migrate, intermingle, mix, not mix, where people settle, where they decide not to settle. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And so, well, I would say gradually the more people from the medical field at first started to get interested in Chinese medicine, acupuncture in special.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a bunch of those back in the 80s and 90s, yeah, who were practicing acupuncture already. And then I would say like probably early 2000s or late 90s, there was like a lot of people coming from non-medical background who started to study and practice also abroad. And then things started to get crazy. Like a lot of people were practicing, or a lot of people were looking for a place to study. And general interest started to grow since then, like late 90s, early 2000s.
That's very, very similar to our situation up here in North America. Now, you said that you're also a surgeon. You're a medical MD.
Yeah, I'm an MD. I graduated from the University of Chile in the year 2001. So it's been a while. I've mainly worked as a general practitioner. I mean, our degree says, it's in Spanish, it says medical surgeon, okay, which is basically the equivalent of your MD, medical doctor. That's what I didn't specialize in surgeon, but if you see my degree, that's what it says. But I didn't specialize in surgery, sorry, afterwards.
So, what drew you to the Chinese medicine? I mean, here you've got this fantastic background in Western medicine, and
it's an interesting story. Actually, the year was 1979. Around that, I was 5, and I was looking at this TV program. I don't know if you had this back in the States. It was a TV news program, really short. It lasted around 10 minutes. I can't remember the name. I only remember the name in Spanish. But it was produced in Western Germany at the time. Okay. And they said 1979, Mao Zedong had already died, so China started to open. So this was probably one of the first crews of TV people that went to China and did like a short documentary on life in China. So I was watching this, and I don't know, late 70s, everybody was in their Mao suits, everywhere in Beijing. A lot of bicycles, almost no cars at all. And then they show you the highlights, the Forbidden City, the Summer Palace, the Great Wall. And then at some point, they show the inside of a hospital. Don't remember which hospital it was in Beijing. And they show this guy, Chinese doctor, dressed in white with these hats that they wear, especially old doctors. And he was sticking needles into someone's back. And you had the acupuncture charts on the wall. And I was watching this and I went crazy. I was like, I want to do this.
And you're 5 years old.
Yeah, I'm 5 years old. And I'm like, I really need to learn to do that someday, But
I am always delighted to hear where people find their inspiration. It comes from the strangest places. And sometimes it seems like just the smallest thing. Just a couple moments of a 10-minute documentary on China. You see acupuncture, boom, something lights up in you.
Yeah, I mean, it felt actually like it had something. There was something about that I think this has something to do with me. That's what I felt.
Yes,
I mean,
something to do with me. So you become a Western medical doctor.
Yeah.
In the back of your mind is this remembrance of acupuncture. I'm going to do this someday. When did it come back around to you where, okay, now I can do something about it?
Well, actually, I was in my second year of medical school back in the university. And the faculty just offered this extracurricular course on acupuncture. And it was taught by this doctor. He was a dentist. He had lived in China for a couple of years. And he had studied in the Sino-Japanese hospital in Beijing.
Right, just up the road from Dongzhimen.
Yeah. And he taught a course, and that was every Saturday morning, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Okay, every Saturday that was for 2 years. So that was my first approach. And I always say that I was really young at that time. I loved to party. I loved to hang out till late night. But I never missed a single class. I mean, that was my main motivation at that time. So I did that. I did that course. I mean, when you do this, and on the side, of course, you have to do your anatomy, your embryology, your physiology, and all of that. And then you're doing Chinese medicine on weekends. I would say that I got my interest of reason from that. I got the language. I mean, when I say language, I'm not talking about the specifics of Mandarin. So, but I got to understand what yin and yang more or less was about, 5 movements, 5 phases, and the structural concepts of Chinese medicine. I got to understand more or less the difference between views of, okay, how the body gets sick according to Chinese medicine, your causes of illness, pattern differentiation, and I got to learn a bit about acupuncture and some acupoints. But basically, that's what I learned.
Well, that's a great start. I mean, if you can learn some of the basic concepts, so now you're able to begin to look at the world through these other structures. All of a sudden, you're able to see a whole lot, well, both ways illnesses can arise, but more importantly, ways that you can intervene and be helpful to people.
Yeah, of course. I think being a physician is all about that. It's about finding solutions for your patients. That's
exactly.
Well, and then nothing happened until I was doing my internship. Here, it's 7 years. 5 years, you get like your bachelor degrees in medicine, and then you have to do a 2-year internship. It's really hard because you go through everything, and then you get your formal MD title after you complete the internship and pass all the exams. And so while I was in my internship, the first school opened in Chile, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least the first that I knew of, that started teaching Chinese medicine. So this for me was really accommodating the format because they were doing classes once a month, just one weekend, once a month. Otherwise, I couldn't have done it at that point because of the internship. So I took that course and it lasted again 2 years, just my final 2 years of medical school.
So you did your Chinese medicine training concurrent with the end of your medical school?
Yeah. I mean, my first trainings, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more like a glimpse. I don't know. I can't find the word in English.
No,
but
no,
it was,
I think glimpse is a good description. And I think even if you're going full-time to a Chinese medicine school, you're still just getting a glimpse. 3 years of training, and now you have a glimpse.
Yeah.
Then you get to start really learning.
Yeah, that's true. And so I graduated from medical school and everybody was happy in the family. And I got a gift and I went to China for a few months.
Now, how did you decide to go to China?
Well, this course that I was taking, they offered you like study trip or something like that. So,
right.
Yeah, so that was my graduation present.
Sweet.
And yeah, that was actually perfect.
Yes, it was.
And I went to China for the whole clinical study trip lasted for a few weeks, and it was in Guangzhou University of Chinese Medicine.
Yep.
That was interesting. I don't know if you've ever been to Guangzhou, but I've been several times in the last decade. But back in 2002, Guangzhou was something totally different than what is now.
What was it like back then?
It was damp, a bit smelly.
It's still damp.
Oh, it's still damp. Yeah, of course it's damp. But a lot of town was like being in some sort of labyrinth, like in Beijing when you get lost walking through the hutongs,
Mm-hmm.
Guangzhou had that same feeling. And I had a friend with me that had studied some Chinese. And he was like laughing because his Chinese was useless because most people just spoke Cantonese.
Right, they didn't speak Mandarin there.
Yeah, we love the way it sounds because of kung fu movies. Yeah, when we were growing up, and I remember from the university, we were just having classes and going to clinical practice, and then we would just walk around town, get lost. Anything that where we were offered in the street, like street food, we would just pay for it and just try it. I mean, it was so much different kind of stimuli coming from everywhere, visual, the language. Nobody understood crap of what we were saying.
Yes, it's rather mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was. And I was in my mid-20s probably, maybe a bit more, still very young, and I was totally excited. And actually the thing that got most, because I wanted to go to China since I was 5, and actually I had my mental images of what China was gonna be like when I got there, and it was nothing, not even close to what I was expecting. So I think that was the best part.
Yes, it can be so disorienting to have these ideas of how we think a place is, or it should be. And then we arrive there and find out it's nothing like our imagination. You're not just starting from the first step. You're having to undo all the steps that you had in your imagination.
Yeah.
And then you can start to really engage the place.
Yeah, but it was fun. I had tons of fun, and then
You had fun and you learned some medicine.
of course, and I got to see. For me, it still was all very theoretical, But then you get to see it in hospitals, in everyday people just lining up, getting their acupuncture, getting their herbs, and take us to another hospital, and you say, they use this everywhere, and that was also one of the most surprising things. It's not small. It's something huge. Huge, and it's totally. Here we say this, the transversal. If even you have a lot of money, everybody can access it. It was mind blowing. To see the spread of Chinese medicine in China. I didn't expect it to be so much in the 21st century. That's especially coming from a Western medical background, going there and see people that have just had a stroke and they were doing acupuncture, or they had a facial paralysis and they were having acupuncture, and etc. etc. It was really mind blowing.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary: raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code CHEOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Yes, well, it's so embedded in the culture there. And even the ideas of Chinese medicine, the ways that you and I learned to look through these filters and lenses and concepts and start to see the world a little bit differently. Oh, yeah, maybe you don't want to be eating ice cream during your period. That might be a good idea. We can understand that at this point, you and I, and everybody out listening to this. We can understand that at this point. But we couldn't understand that before we studied medicine. And a lot of times people in China, it's not a foreign concept. They completely grow up with that idea.
Of course.
I had a woman once when I was working in Beijing. She came in, she said, my period is usually just fine. I never have trouble, but the other night I was out with my girlfriends and I wasn't thinking. I accidentally drank a cold soda with ice in it. And now today my period stopped, I have a headache and I'm nauseous. Right. So she knew to go see a Chinese medicine practitioner. Why? Cold stagnation. That was super easy to diagnose. She told me exactly what her problem was. She knew what her problem was. You find that when you go to China and you work in the hospitals there and you see what's going on and how the people speak about it, because it's not foreign. It's built into the structure of the culture. It makes it much easier to practice Chinese medicine in many ways because they're able to come in and basically tell you what is wrong with them.
And I would say, especially like in the elderly, that's a lot more common than in young people nowadays, at least.
Yeah, probably.
Because they know people that have grown in these traditions, and even if they didn't study medicine, they know their yin and yang. They know cold causes stagnation, and they know they shouldn't maybe go for a cold swim if they're having their period. They know that dairy food is not really that good for you. They know a lot of stuff, and they even know oh yeah, I'm massaging my Susan leaf because I have this and this and this. They even know that, and they will even give you point recommendations sometimes in the clinic.
Right, and then like all the old grandmas and all the old aunties, they're very good with gua sha and cupping. It's not a strange thing whatsoever. It's completely part of the culture.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful about the thing about Chinese medicine and Chinese culture in general. It's embedded in the whole culture.
So you were in Guangzhou. You got to study some medicine. Didn't you also at some point study in Beijing with Dr. Wang Jui?
Yeah, but that was 8 years after that. I've been coming and going to China since 2002. After that, I just traveled around China for a month, maybe a bit more than a month. I did some Southeast Asia also, just for fun. And then I came back. I started working as a GP, and then I applied for a scholarship and went back to China. Then I stayed for almost 3 years. My first year was in Tianjin University of Chinese Medicine. There was this program, I don't know if they have it anymore. There was a program that was mainly focused for Western doctors, and it was really intense. It was like a year program, and you had classes every day. And I would say that from this program, I got the structure because I learned the basic theory, my diagnosis, my syndrome differentiation. I learned herbs, acupuncture. We had really decent clinical practice. It was a bit of everything. And then I moved down to Nanjing and stayed there for another year and a half. And there I was mainly following, maybe you've heard of Dr. Wan Ningsheng. He's really one of these really old school doctors.
I'm not familiar with him. What did he have any unusual or particularly helpful perspectives that you were able to learn about?
I would say that his diagnosis skills is the best I've seen. Yeah, and up until then, that's why I stuck with him. And his heart, I would say. I mean, he's always smiling, and he's so caring with his patients and with his students. And I mean, we're friends until this day. So we just actually we hosted an online seminar with him the last couple of weekends, and I don't know, it's already been like 17 years since we met. He's a wonderful human being. He loves to research and study the Neijing, the Shanhanlun, and he learned that he didn't have a formal education at the university. He learned medicine with his mother taught him. So he's very old school, as I said.
It's interesting hearing that he learned from his mother. So,
yeah,
I mean, especially a certain generation, people would learn from a family member or they learn from somebody in the community. We often hear about how the medicine was passed down from male to male. And yet I have heard so many stories of people who learned it, and whoever their teacher was, that teacher learned it from a grandmother.
Yeah.
That teacher learned it from a mother. There's actually, I think I'm coming around to here, I don't know if believing's the right word, but I've just heard so many stories now of the medicine being passed down through the women. It's not an unusual thing to hear about this.
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Something we should learn more about, actually.
Well, I mean, I don't know about down your way, but up here in the United States, I'm guessing 70% of the practitioners are women. You know, and a lot of the teachers these days also women.
Yeah, I would say here maybe it's 50-50, I would say, practitioners, men and yeah, but he learned with his mother, and now in Nanjing, he's revered. Yeah, he's revered. I mean, he's like, so he has like this kind of certificate, what you could say, an old ancient famous doctor, something like that, from the government. Yeah, that's
probably like a Lao Ming Yi.
Yeah. Lao Ming, that's his title. So then I came back to Chile in late 2005. I did some work teaching at hospitals. I started a small practice, and then after a year, like I was back in China again after a year. And
you just couldn't stay away, could you?
Yeah, no, I couldn't. And mainly I was going back to see this doctor, Dr. Wan Ningsheng, and to practice Tai Chi. Also in Nanjing, I met this wonderful Tai Chi teacher, and I've been practicing with him since more or less 2004. And I was going more teaching. And usually here I was going like winter. Here we get our summer starts in late December, but also our vacation. So for me, it was easy to get free time in January and February. And usually I went to cold China in those months.
Oh man, Nanjing is not fun in the winter.
No,
It's
no.
cold, it's damp, it's cloudy. Ugh.
It gets to your bones.
Yes,
Actually,
it
I
does.
prefer Beijing. It's colder, but it doesn't have this damp quality that gets so deep inside. You're
Hmm.
exposed to it. Well, I was just doing this, and at that time when I was in Nanjing, I met Giovanni Machocha. I met him in 2005. I met him again around 2008, probably in the Pacific Symposium in San Diego. Then I met him in New York for one of his courses, and I invited him for lunch. We had a really nice pasta in Soho with some wine. We became quite good friends. So I invited him to Chile. He came. He spent like a week here in Santiago. He taught a weekend seminar, and the rest of the time we were just going around, going to good restaurants, wine tasting, and so it was so fun to be with. I have to say. And a few years before he passed, I got to visit him in Santa Barbara, and we basically did the same over there also.
Well, let's see. Wine, nice wine, good food, good company, a little medicine. It's not a bad way to go through the day.
Yeah, no, not a bad way. Yeah, he was a big influence also, I have to say. He was, I
Hmm.
think, for most people that practice Chinese medicine the way he was.
Well, of course. I mean, the material that he translated, it was like everybody's textbook that I knew.
Yeah.
So those fundamentals that we so much rely on, yeah, his contribution was enormous that way.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I've always really grateful and lucky to have met him and to have been able to spend a lot of quality time with him.
So you've been lucky. I mean, ever since the age of 5, it's like there's these stepping stones that show up that allow you
Yeah,
to go deeper and deeper into this thing we're enchanted with when you were a child.
yes. And you haven't heard the best part, actually, yet.
I don't know, street food in Guangdong and Guangzhou sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I told you I was in Pacific Symposium. Yeah, that was
Hmm.
2008. In the showroom of the Pacific Symposium, I walk by Islam Press stand,
Yes.
and I see this book. It's called Applied Channel Theory by Dr. Wang Jui and Jason Robertson. And John, the person who was working there for Islam Company, Islam Press, sorry.
Yes. John O'Connor.
John O'Connor, yeah.
John O'Connor makes Eastland Press work.
Yeah, John O'Connor, he's a great guy.
Yes.
He just speaks wonders about this book. I mean, you have to get it. I mean, if you're really into acupuncture, into channels, I mean, there's nothing like this ever been written. And I'm like, wow. And so I just got a copy. I came back to Santiago. I read the book. And then on my next trip to China, that was just maybe 2 months away, I just went everywhere in Beijing looking for this Dr. Wang Jui. And I couldn't find him. Nobody knew him. And the university said, "Oh, he retired. Maybe he's dead." Something like that. All of my friends that were living there and that were, like, of course, in the medical Chinese medicine field, nobody knew about him. So I just came back to Chile. Nothing happened. Next year, 2009, I go to Pacific Symposium again.
There's John O'Connor again.
Yeah, there he is again. And actually, it's a funny story because the first hardcover edition they had some problems. So when you kind of cracked in the middle, so John O'Connor gave me a new copy. I just told him, look, I bought this wonderful book last year, but this happened. Oh yeah, I know this. And I was also buying a bunch of other books, so he just grabbed a new copy. This copy is new, and it won't happen. I mean, the same thing will happen. He just gave me a new copy.
Those guys at Eastland Press are great.
Yeah, they're great.
Their attention to quality is just unparalleled. It sounds so in character.
It is. I'm walking around and I meet this young woman who was working for, I don't remember. It might not be Acupuncture Without Borders, but it was some similar kind of initiative. And we started talking, and she told me that she was from Seattle. And we started talking, and she saw that I had the book in my hand, and she said, "Oh, Jason was one of my teachers. Oh, that's great. I would love to meet him," and blah, 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 blah. And so we exchanged emails, and I just went back home to Santiago again. I was down south in Patagonia for a couple of weeks working. They just took me there to treat, I don't know, hundreds of patients a day. That was crazy, actually. We're doing like this huge community clinic. And I was there for some weeks. And then Jason Robertson writes me an email. So this young woman that I've met, she talked to him, and she must have said something like, "Hey, there was this guy from Chile that read your book," something like that. So Jason got excited, and he wrote me an email,
And I'll bet Jason knew exactly where Dr. Wang Jui was.
of course. So we started writing, exchanging emails, like almost on a weekly basis with Jason. And then at some point, I just told him, I'm going to China again. I'm going to China really soon. And he said, would you like me to introduce you to my teacher? And I said, please do. And then that's what happened. So that was late 2009. I stayed a few months there with Dr. Wang at his clinic. He was teaching at that time it was near the military museum.
Yes, I remember that, way out on the west side of Beijing.
Yeah. I love to go there.
Was it Hummingbird Lane, Bumblebee Lane, something like that?
Oh, well, yeah, I don't remember. I have photos of that, and so I spent there a few months, and I was like, that's when I felt like I have been very lucky. I have very good teachers, wonderful experiences, but I think it was then that I felt really like my mind kind of cracked open, and I was like, this guy is something else. The way like he did everything. From palpating channels to palpating points before putting one needle. And also you would see that he would get to these wonderful results, maybe with 3-4 needles. And then even the way he drank his tea or he would smoke a cigar was special. That's everything was special about. And he would have this pace, this really kind of slow pace that you don't see really that much in China nowadays. And then he would start talking, and you would just go crazy. Listening to his mind opening up ideas and interpretations from the classics, and I don't know, clinical experience, and so much. Wow, I went back home again. I had to work, so I had to keep back home.
Of course. Well, and it's a good thing, too, because to have a time where you can be exposed to great teachers, like your teacher in Nanjing, or to someone in Beijing like Wang Jui, whoever, to have a chance to be with them, to have your mind opened up, to have new ideas, to begin to see things differently than you'd seen them before. I think it's very helpful to go back to our clinics and just dig in to the work with our new way of looking and seeing, and see if we can figure it out for ourselves. How does this stuff work with these new ideas that I have? I think the clinical practice piece is absolutely essential. You can't do without it.
Yeah, and I think that, of course, that worked out well for me. I started doing palpation as soon as I got back to Santiago. I've never stopped. And then that same year, Dr. Wang and Jason taught a course in Offenbach in Germany. So I just I paid for my tickets and I flew to Germany, and it was like a 5-day course, practical and theoretical. So they went through all the channel physiology according to applied channel theory, and we did the palpations of all channel, point locations, live clinical cases with Dr. Wang in the afternoon. So it was perfect. And once again, with this course, I felt like I got the structure. Then you just have to start feeling it. And once you get the foundations all set, you can start feeling it with your own experiences. And then I went back to Dr. Wang's. I used to live right after Christmas. I would go to Beijing and probably stay until late March. That was my routine.
Great. You were there for the worst time of the year.
Yeah, for sure. It was cold as hell. But the good thing is that usually few students came. Most of the time it was just Mei Li. I don't know if you've talked to Mei Li.
Yeah, I know Mei Li. Yes.
Yeah, it was her, Jonathan Chang, and me. A lot of the time was just the three of us, and maybe one or two weirdos that would show up in winter, and that was it. No, not many.
Yeah.
So I think I got the most of it because I was going in winter.
So how would you say, this is a big question. How would you say your thinking about acupuncture shifted by having exposure to Dr. Wang Jui?
Well, I think it changed everything about it. Before that, we all studied channels. You have to learn the main trajectories of the channel, that they go through here, they go through here. But when you go down to practice, it's mainly about points. I mean, which acupoints am I going to use? After studying with Dr. Wang until now, I mean, the main difference is the channel became something alive in my mind and in my practice. And when I'm doing acupuncture, of course, and I'm thinking about channels. I'm not thinking whether I'm going to use for gates or this or that point. I'm thinking about diseased channels. Okay, and sometimes I'm even thinking, okay, about healthy channels to help the diseased channel flow better. So I would think that's the main difference, because I think palpation-based styles of acupuncture and channel-based systems are stronger nowadays. They're more popular nowadays. But 20 years ago, it was mostly point-based. I mean, you'll use this point for damp, this point for this, or even in the more like medical side of acupuncture, it was like this point for stomach ache, this point for headache, this point for sciatica pain, or this for. So, I mean, it shifted the whole way to look at acupuncture. And again, I'm really thankful for that. Still, I say I'm the luckiest guy in the world, because I was able to keep going to China up until the day he died. He passed in August 2017. And I was lucky enough to be chosen by him as one of his second generation apprentices. And we did the whole ceremony. And that was probably one of the best days of my life. That was 2013. I only have words of love toward Dr. Wang Jui, wherever he may be, and forever grateful. I think my success as an acupuncturist today is mainly due to him.
Having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things you can do as a healthcare practitioner, because a robust business is the ultimate expression of vital qi, and that's the heart of our medicine. I'm Julie Bairdontlock, and I help practitioners grow nourishing, profitable, authentic businesses that embody the generative cycle of Chinese medicine. This isn't about all yang all the time. It's about expanding your own internal capacity, growing collaborative relationships with your patients for ethical patient retention, and marketing as an extension of this medicine, not a necessary evil. You already know that everything is connected in your patients' lives and bodies. The same is true for your business. When we align your systems, your schedule, your pricing, and your offerings with you, we create flow, which means more spaciousness, more impact, and more joy. When you are in the flow, fully resourced in terms of chi, time, and money, your business becomes a source of healing, not just for your patients, but for you. Let's grow something rooted, radiant, and real. Visit lifeflowconsulting.com to learn more.
He was an extraordinary human being. I mean, as you pointed out,
Yes.
he was an extraordinary human being, very intentful and mindful, constantly trying to figure things out. I think one of the things I so appreciate about the small amount of time that I spent with him was that he didn't rest on any kind of accolades. He would look into the areas where things weren't working and try to figure out why aren't they working. And he'd go back to his classics. He'd go back to his notes. He'd go back to a case to see what he had missed. He was constantly in this learning mode, and he was incredibly generous with what he had to share.
Yes.
I would agree with you that because of him, and also the work that Jason Robertson did of taking his experience with Dr. Wang Jui, with the years that he spent in Beijing, turning it into that book so that we all have access to it, that we can gain this appreciation, not just for the points, but for the dynamic of the channels. And you just said something that I think it's only in the past few years for myself that I have found this to be true and found it to be helpful, which is you take what's healthy in the body, you take the channels that are working well, and you use what's working well to treat what's not working well, that we can use what's correct about our physiology to help treat. what is not correct about our physiology. And I think this is one of the most potent aspects of the medicine that we practice, that we can take the resources that are already present and we can mobilize them. And that mobilization and that power, it's not small.
No, it's not.
Amazing things can happen.
Yes. I'm just gonna grab one of your phrases what you said. Yeah, for me, he was an amazing human being, but what I admire most, I think, was the way his mind worked. I mean, he was always like in problem solving mode, and he was always up until the last days, he was still thinking about certain diseases, processes, certain chapters of books. He was still doing that up until his last days. I mean, he was really, truly amazing. And he gathered such an amazing group of people around him. That's also something I'm thankful because, I mean, for Jonathan, for Jason, I mean, we're really all good friends. We speak regularly. I'm grateful for Mei Li, for Nisa, for Yefim, which are all true and wonderful friends. We all share the passion and the love that for our teacher.
Yes. So are you in the work, because you teach in schools down there in Chile?
I have a school here.
You have a school?
Yeah.
So I suspect you're teaching these methods and techniques that you've learned from Dr. Wang.
Yeah, our school teaches acupuncture. It's a part-time program with the Chinese medicine with main focus on acupuncture. We have another program on Tuina. We recently started Jingfang course also.
Which aspect of the Jingfang will you be teaching?
No, not me. A friend of mine teaches that. He's a follower of Huang.
Oh, yeah, one of Dr. Huang's great.
Yeah, he mainly teaches classical herbs. Okay. And I mostly teach acupuncture, and acupuncture is very much palpation based. So all of our students go through the physiology and the palpation process. And I also do some extracurriculum courses for those that want to go deeper into channel theory. Yeah, because it's a process. But I've been doing that for the last 5 years. We kind of shifted the whole curriculum in order to adapt it more into Dr. Wang's way of thinking.
One of the things I found very interesting about studying Dr. Wang's material is that puts together acupuncture with the great channels in a way that I don't feel like I ever really got it in school. I mean, you hear about like the lung, like the hand tie-in lung channel or the foot tie-in spleen channel. You know, we hear these sort of longer names of the channels, but to actually understand, what does tie-in mean? What does Yangming mean? What does Jui-yin mean? It seems like Dr. Wang Jui went into quite a bit about that.
Of course. I mean, that was the main focus, of his book, and of his teaching was about understanding healthy physiology first.
Yes.
And his way of explaining healthy physiology is through these 6 channels, because basically one of the ways we can understand this is the 6 rivers, and then one aspect of the river flows through your upper extremity, upper body, and one aspect of your extremity of this river flows through your lower extremity. Okay, that's why we have 12 channels, but these 6 channels, and that pairing is not by luck, by chance. It's something they have a anatomical and physiological, functional, common something. I don't know how to express myself in English for that, but I think you get it.
The very word that was coming to mind for me was functional.
Yeah.
That there's nothing arbitrary about this, that these 6 great flows, which of course can be subdivided into 12, but these 6 great flows are all about physiology and function. And if we can understand physiology and function through these 6 great flows, now you don't need point prescriptions.
Yeah.
Now you don't need protocols, because you have the source code for being able to figure out what's happening for any individual at this moment in time, and then what to do about it.
Something I remember Dr. Wang said at one point, that it's important to know the map, and the map, it's, or you would say our compass also, that's the channel system.
Mm-hmm.
It tells you what's happening in the body, and it guides you through the therapeutic process.
It really makes clinical practice fun.
Yes, yes. And I have to say that ever since I've started using this a little bit over 10 years ago, practice just gets better and better. In every sense, more fun, patients get better, you get more patients coming in.
Yes. And that's more fun.
Yeah, that's more fun. Even now, we're in lockdown now in Santiago. I can still work because I'm a medical doctor, so I can still go and do my work. And I thought that patients would stop coming, but they don't. They still come.
So tell us a little bit about how you're treating long COVID patients. What are some of the common things that you're seeing that you find that our medicine is helpful for?
I think it works really well with the lack of smell, taste, and but then mainly with fatigue. And this, the patient described it so well. He said that I feel like all my organs are out of order.
Mm-hmm.
Like his breathing pattern is out of order, his digestive patterns are out of order, his urinary patterns are out of order, everything is out of order. And it's interesting because according to what Dr. Wang taught, tie-in channels are in charge of rhythms, mainly because of the lung. The breathing rhythm is what sets the entire rhythms of your body. And of course, this patient got pneumonia because of COVID, so his lungs are pretty messed up. So everything else gets messed up. So basically, of course, I palpated him and I did palpation, channel palpation, of course, and diagnosed him. And he had mainly what we would say tie-in counterflow. Okay, so I just chose a couple of points. Lung 5, spleen 9, one of Dr. Wang's favorite combination.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, that's the latest patients I saw, but I've seen this pattern a couple of times this last few months, and a lot of tie-in issues always. And usually I do like a mix of first doing these HESI points, like lung 5, spleen 9. Sometimes then I do UN source points, like lung 9, spleen 3, sometimes kidney 3, also depends, but more for the tonifying aspect of tie-in especially. And it works. It seems to be working with few COVID patients that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. When you're doing your channel palpation, is there anything that seems to regularly show up in these long haul COVID patients who have a tie-in condition?
Yeah, mainly they have, most of what the ones I've seen, they have like chain nodules from like Kongsue to Chutse, like lung 6 to lung 5. And the same goes from the spleen. Usually the spleen gets a lot the worst, but I think because most people's spleens are already a bit deficient
or compromised. Yeah,
compromised. So usually in the spleen you get a lot of Sain Jiao to in Chuan, you get a whole chain of nodules. That's what I've seen the most. Yeah, I'm really interested in keep with this. I hope I get more people that have already had COVID, because it's interesting, because some people have had heart issues,
yes,
or kidney failure or other things, and I would like to see how all this shows up in the patients' channels. I hope I get the chance to see more patients.
Well, I suspect that you will, because, we already know, regardless of what kind of viral infection, there are always people who are going to have some kind of post-viral issues. Fibromyalgia falls in that, chronic fatigue falls in Epstein-Barr. We know that viral issues that have not completely been resolved can result in this. And, lucky for us, there are things that we can use with our medicine that will be very, very helpful for people that have suffered with long COVID. I'm curious to look back 3 years from now.
Yeah, me too.
And see all the things that we're going to have an opportunity to learn about treating because of COVID. I think this is where our medicine has a huge opportunity to relieve a lot of suffering and help a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I've been trying to have a lot of colleagues that have had the COVID, of course, those that work in the front lines. Mm-hmm. And I've been trying to get them to go to the clinic, but of course there's still a lot of these skeptics in the medical community, so it's not that easy.
But I love treating skeptics because skeptics are generally paying attention in some way. I'm always worried about the people who come into my clinic, they've never had acupuncture, and they say, I believe in this. It's like, how could you believe in it? You have no experience. If you're believing in it, you're believing in a fantasy. You're not believing in actual clinical results. Many skeptics, they're looking to see if they get results. And if they do, okay, they're in. So skepticism's it's not a bad
Yeah,
thing.
it's healthy skepticism.
Healthy
is
skepticism,
good. Yeah.
right? As opposed to closed-minded skepticism. But that's a whole different kettle of
Yes.
fish.
I mean, there's a whole rainbow of skeptics down here, and of course, I know you have them there. Those that don't even believe in the pandemic. It's also made up lie by the government or something like that.
I like your phrasing, a rainbow of skeptics.
Yeah, different colors, of course. Of course. I mean, you have the scientists, that hardcore medical practitioners that don't believe in nothing that doesn't belong to Western medical science. But then on the other end, you have the new age kind of skeptic that don't believe in anything that has to do with science, but they believe in healing power of the moon, the stars, whatever.
There may be that, but I don't know how to use it in clinic. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, so speaking of clinic, we're going to have to wind this down in a moment. You have a school. It sounds like you're doing some teaching online. Are some of the things that you're teaching available to people all over the world? I mean, if I was interested in sitting in on one of your classes, could I do that?
Oh, I forgot this platform. There's this platform. Oh, I forgot them. Lorne Brown's platform. I just forgot the name of his platform.
Healthy Seminars.
Healthy Seminars, yes. There was a course, it was a class that I taught in Israel in the Congress that they do every year. They've invited me a couple of times, and the one I did on Sanjiao, like the whole concept and some clinical application of the Sanjiao. According to applied channel theory, of course, I did that, and that's in English, and that's online. It's available in Healthy Seminars. Everything I do, else I do, it's available in
Spanish.
Spanish, of course, through my school's website. The only one in English is that one. They recorded another one of my lectures in Israel, but I might be in TCM Academy, but I'm not sure. They recorded the last lecture I did in Tel Aviv 2 years ago.
It would be nice if we could get you up here to teach a class sometime.
I would love to.
Once we're able to travel and everything, it would be fun.
Yes, I think we're months away from that. I'm being optimistic.
I'm optimistic as well. Sometimes that gets me in a lot of trouble, but I'd still rather be an optimist than a pessimist.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Rodrigo, thank you so much for sitting down for a conversation with me today. And it's always fun to hear about how we found our way into this medicine. And really, there are these extraordinary moments where something opens up for us, right? You just happened to be at the PCOM conference, came across Jason's book. That would be right about the time it first was published, if it was 2008.
Yep.
You just happened to be there right as it was being published. So I think we often get lucky in our lives that opportunities show up.
Yeah, I'm going to quote Queen. It's kind of magic. That's what I would say.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to talking with you again sometime.
Yeah, me too, Mike. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
One thing for sure, passion, vision, and persistence will take you a long way. And while the road at times might not be clear, if you keep putting yourself in front of what you're after, the opportunities will show up. But it does take some persistence and a kind of a steady heart. I think about Rodrigo's various trips to China before he crossed paths with Dr. Wang Jui. It reminds me that it can take years, decades really, to bring to fruition the spark that set us along a certain path. As the I Ching seems to constantly be telling me, perseverance furthers. Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of Qiological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Qiological.